Yo, welcome to the Smitty and Eddie show. I'm joined here by yours truly, NBA Cap Wiz, aka Eddie Presti, man. Our first live show, guys. Welcome to this show, man. Brought to you by KOD Media and Morning Brew Sports. Man, we cannot thank you guys enough for joining us. What do you think, Eddie? You ready to get into this and talk some NBA? What's
Yeah,
going on?
man. Let's get this started, Smitty. Let's get this show started, bro.
Of course, and before we go into it, we'd love to give a wrap of what's going on around the NBA right now. So, without further ado, man, obviously, as you guys know, this is a broad NBA-based show. We're going to be talking all things NBA. And the first thing I want to talk about, guys, obviously, it's fairly recent news, is the first sighting of Kevin Durant as a Phoenix member of the Phoenix Suns yesterday. Talk to us, Eddie, man. I know he had a great game. I know you've seen it. I've seen it. He had some pretty good numbers in the time. Granted, they played Charlotte, but what was your take from his first sighting as a Phoenix Sun?
Well, listen, they're playing against the Charlotte Hornets. KD's first game back. I was impressed. I didn't know what to expect with him coming off the injury and whatnot. But listen, they played him 27 minutes. What he scored? 23 points. Got 6 rebounds. Got a couple, assists here and there. It was a nice showing, but I have to see a little bit more from KD. I want to see the way this team gels down the stretch. Obviously, they're going to be I think they're the favorite right now to win the championship. And I have to see a little bit more before I start crowning Phoenix. That's all I have to say, on that.
No doubt, man. Well, I mean, look, the first thing I noticed is now teams absolutely cannot double Devin Booker. Teams are going to look to double team him, and they have in the past. Now, I mean, you can't double both. I mean, you would just leave too many people open on the floor. So, I mean, this Phoenix Suns team, Eddie, is looking, dangerous. I mean, on paper, we've had a small glimpse. I am with you though. I need to see more. And look, I want to see more from it and see how that goes, man. Shout outs as well to everyone that has joined us as well. Just before we go any further, I appreciate everyone that has joined us so far and is in the chat. But Eddie, man, look. I'll say this last thing on the Suns. The Suns, again, I hate to repeat myself, but on paper they look great. Look, man, can we get a roll call as well from everyone? Everyone that's in the building. Shout outs to you all, man, all the people. But hey, look, Eddie. Look, man, what more can we say about the Suns? Championship pedigree.
I mean, let me ask you this on the Suns, right? To me, the key to the whole season with them is going to come down to Aiden, right? Aiden's the third guy, right? It's obviously Chris Paul is going to play a role, but Aiden, if he's a dude that could step up a little bit and give them the numbers that he was giving them, I think he's going to be the key to the season. I don't know what you think about it. Obviously, Durant and Booker are two of the best players in the NBA, but to me, if Aiden can play to that all-star level, I think, then we're talking about, championship level caliber. But we'll see. It's all about the fit, man. It's all about the fit.
No doubt, man. No doubt, man. And again, just a roll call in the chat. Chuck it in. Let us know you're here, man. Shout outs to the chat and the people in that. I just want to talk about it as well. The Milwaukee Bucks, man. 16 straight games in a row. 16 W's, man. 16 W's. And Giannis is back. Giannis is definitely back, man. What can we say, man? They're top of the East. They're top of the East, and it just looks great, man. It looks great for the Milwaukee Bucks, man. I have them as definitely a 1 or 2 coming out of the East, 1 or 2. I know they're 1 now. Obviously, their only real threat is the Celtics, I feel. But man, the Bucks look good, and then that's with Middleton not having his best season and coming off the bench right now and not being the best. But that says to me how dangerous they are. What are you thinking about that, Eddie, man? Like,
well, look, to me, the East is a 2-team race. Obviously, like you just said, I think it's the Celtics and the Bucks. I think I think those are the 2 clear, kings of the East. I think it's going to come down to those 2 teams. We're going to see what happens in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's coming off the bench. Holiday's playing out of his mind. So is the Freak. The Freak's been, probably one of the 2 best players in the NBA right now. It's him and Luka, as far as I'm concerned. And, the Bucks right now, it's just a matter of what they could do. They're obviously the hottest team in the NBA. And if they could just, rest Middleton and get him right for the playoffs, I think that's the key to the season. And it's going to be a war between the Celtics and the Bucks. It's going to be an absolute war, and the best team's going to come out on top. Right now, I got the Celtics ahead of the Bucks, but that's because I like their chemistry better. They've had their injuries too, but I like their chemistry. I like the weapons they have off the bench. So the Celtics right now are my team, Smitty.
No doubt. We've got a few people in the chat. Obviously, our guy, Jiggerman Porto. Shout out to my guy, Jigger. It says, Giannis is playing like a real Greek freak right now. He's not wrong, man. Giannis is just an absolute treasure, And we got 19 comment NYC84 says they're not bucking around. Playing a little bit of play on words there, a little bit of PG. I like how you kept that PG, Con man, and the pun that you did there, man. We've got another little fun one there. Delano Still Jr. says only Giannis Antetokounmpo's girlfriend is allowed to call him Greek freak. So, as he says, I'm a freak on the court and I'm a freak in the sheets. He loves to play around. But shout out to everyone in the chat. Obviously, we got roll call. Hey, there he is, my guy Hector, Project Nerd HQ. Salute. Obviously, Phil Porto as well, and everyone else that's in here. Delano Steele, all you guys that have joined us, man. I'll get to you guys. We've got a Kenny Payne. I don't know if that's the real one. If it is, shout out to Pamela's in the chat, all you guys, man. We appreciate you. But hey, without further ado, we're going to just jump into a segment that we've got here for you guys. And this one's called The Weakest Link. So let's jump into that and you'll see who we've got.
All right, man. For the weakest link, I'm going to start this out. All right, Smitty? My first guy is going to be, I'm going to go with Kyle Lowry. This dude, all right, let's give a little context first here. The Miami Heat, they were a team that was, had an over-under of 49.5 this season. They're a team that took the Celtics to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. They are hook, line, and sinker married to this guy, Kyle Lowry. And to me, I think it was one of the biggest mistakes they made. They're paying this guy $28 million a year. He's played 44 games this season, and he has been a huge disappointment, Smitty. This guy, he's having the worst numbers of his career. Let me just take a look right here. I'm gonna read you off his numbers, Smitty. That's how bad this dude is. Okay, he's averaging 12 points a game. All right, he's giving you 4.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists. He's shooting 39% from field goal, and he's 33% from 3-point percentage. Now, if that's not bad enough, I understand he's hurt and everything, but you can't depend on a guy, one of your main guys that you're paying all this money to. He's a guy that's just been such a disappointment for the Miami Heat. And to make it even worse, Smitty, in January, bro, his numbers were even worse. Dude was averaging 7 points a game, 3.9 assists, shooting 26% from three, bro. Those are garbage numbers, Smitty. That is horrible. This is a guy they married for 3 years. And this guy, I understand he's 36 years old, but they're married to this guy, and what a mistake. He's not the 6-time all-star player that he was with Toronto. He's not the all-NBA player he once was. This is a guy that barely shows up on the court. And it's a shame because Miami, again, they were once one of the top, teams in the East. They got to the finals in the bubble year, but they have been on the they've been on a downhill slope ever since. And to me, Kyle Lowry's been one of the biggest, weakest links in the NBA. So Kyle Lowry, Smitty.
Okay, well, look, and I know you said they're married to this guy. So, as they say, for better or worse, unfortunately, it's for worse for them at the minute. And guys, just before we go into my first of the weakest link, this as is posted in the chat, man, this little segment where we're going to pick 3 guys each that we believe are the weakest links for their teams right now. And then maybe we'll have a little surprise after that for you. And maybe we rank one of them the worst for each of us, but we'll see as we get along. Anyway, guys, I'm going to jump straight into mine, and my first one is Fred VanVleet of the Toronto Raptors.
Shocker.
What can I say, man? What can I say? Look, firstly, to anyone that's listening that is a Raptors fan, someone's not naming names. I just want you to know. Obviously, I told him I would give some context. Granted, they are 8-2 out of their last 10. They have a 31-33 record after today's loss, but just before we got into this, the game not too long ago against the Washington Wizards ended, and it was another poor performance for Fred VanVleet. what can I say, man? So he played 39 minutes today. He shot 5 of 17 from the floor and 2 of 11 from 3. Abhorrent. He's the biggest issue with Fred VanVleet for mine, Eddie, and I know you've seen this. It's his shot selection at times. He sometimes hits and fits into the category of the clutch time, because the clutch is considered, when the game's in the last 5 minutes and within 5 points. If I'm not mistaken, that's the correct criteria for it. And he always, I find from what I've seen, is a guy that will hit a shot when there's 5 minutes left and it's within 5, but then when it's actually down to the wire and we're talking in the last minute and a half or so, it's just a brick. Don't get me wrong. Fred VanVleet has had some big moments. Obviously, granted, he's a champion. But today he had 14, 3, 8, and 2. And as I said, 5 of 17 from the floor and 2 of 11 from 3. On the season, though, he's averaging 19, 4.4, and 6.7. So that's 19 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 6.7 assists. I mean, you look at those and you might go, that's not too bad. But when we apply some context, his shooting is at a very, very subpar 39% from the floor this year and 33.9% from three-point range. That is disgusting by his own standards. The issue with Fred VanVleet has always been his ability to get in the lane and score inside closer to the rim. He's always sort of struggled with that, being a little bit of a smaller dude. Seen some flashes of that actually this year, so I will give him that, but we're not seeing enough, man. He's killing this team at times. I'd hate to wonder, Eddie, obviously I don't like the Toronto Raptors for reasons, but I'd hate to wonder where this team would be maybe if Fred was stepping up. I did say, though, from the start, I've always been the one of when they changed this thing to this, this sort of really 6'8" wing, sort of setup that Fred VanVleet didn't fit, and that it wasn't a great fit, and a big 4. And this is what I say to people when people talk about teams like the Knicks and that, adding another person who requires the ball, at some point there's only so much ball to go around. So I often wonder, and I often wonder what this team would look like if they maybe hadn't done that. Now they've gotten Jakob Poeltl in. They've done better since getting him. Which is something else I pointed out. And a few people, not just me, point out, so these guys need a genuine center. They were very low in the rebounding, offensive rebounding. They were down near the bottom, and defensive rebounding, they were maybe around the middle of the pack earlier in the season, the last time I looked. And that's just where they've struggled, man. They're not cleaning the glass enough. And they need everything in transition. And unfortunately, they were at one stage rated dead last in a half-court offense, and it's still struggling. So, look, they're getting closer to a playing team. They probably are a playing team now. But as Conman VanVleet has a Brunson poster above his locker. I bet he does. I bet he aspires to be Brunson. But that's my first one, guys, man. Fred VanVleet right now, the weakest link for Toronto. So, Eddie, tell us your next person. Who's your second weakest link?
Okay. Hold on here. All right. So,
hold on. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. How are you?
Listen, we didn't warn you guys ahead of time, but we want to stop by. Congratulate you guys on episode 1. The premiere is here. We were like, let's get dressed, hop on real quick, and say what's up. Guys, congratulations. We're really excited to have you guys here on KOD Media, working with the Brew Crew. We couldn't have asked for 2 guys, better guys, to come and head this show up. And so far, I will say, your 2 weakest links, spot on, because they're both trash. Ship them. I don't care. Get rid of all of them, all right?
I just want to say shout out to my guys. Eddie, you looking sharp, baby. I'm kind of jealous, bro. You need to hook me up with your stylist, my guy. Did you steal that out of Walt Class Frazier's suitcase? Where you get that from, bro?
I got inspired by Walt. He's gotta have a little flash sometimes. I figured for the first show I got a style and profile.
Looking good, Eddie. Keep it up, baby. Keep it up. But no, congratulations, fellas. Welcome to the crew. Glad to have you guys on. You guys are super insightful, super knowledgeable. And of course, I had to throw it to my man, Philip.
Yes, sir.
Smitty and Eddie. Y'all are killing it. Man. Loving it. Man. Was upstairs watching Survivor with the wife. Had to sneak out, show some support.
Guys, awesome job. Keep it going. I'm excited to see the rest of your list. On that note, back to you guys. We're out.
appreciate you guys. Heck, Phil, Jigger, of course. You know the team. That's the Morning Brew Sports Crew, aka the panel of Nick's Morning Brew, man. Thank you guys for jumping in there, man, and surprising us like that. Shout out to you guys, and we are. I think I can speak for both of us here, Eddie, when I say we are absolutely, honored to be a part of the team and be doing this little venture with you guys and together. So, yeah, man, I appreciate it, man, and guys. Go and follow and show some support. This is such a great thing that's going on over here, and we appreciate any and all support. Let's go straight into it though. Let's get back on track, man. Weakest link, Eddie, yours next.
Number two. Well, not number two, but my second weakest link is going to be Ben Simmons. Now, Smitty, this doesn't take much thought, from an NBA perspective.
Of course.
But let's be honest. This dude is one of the worst players in the NBA. I mean, the Nets, they traded James Harden for Ben Simmons. I know there was other pieces involved in the deal, but that was the, main frame of the deal was James Harden for Ben Simmons. I know they got picks and whatnot. The Nets thought they were getting one of the best playmakers in the NBA. And at one point, Ben Simmons was one of the best playmakers in the NBA, but he hasn't been one in over 2 years. The problem with Ben Simmons is that the dude he is just a shell of who he was. He had that bad playoff series in Philadelphia, and he's never recovered. I understand he's had a lot of injuries, but listen, I always like to go over player salary. When he's got 3 years and $113 million left on his contract. All right. This dude has played 42 games as a net. He's been there for a season and a half. And he's played 42 games, Smitty. 42 games, bro. I mean, it's unacceptable. And if you want to look then, you want to go dive deeper, man. You look at his numbers. They're atrocious. Ben Simmons' numbers are atrocious. I mean, he's not even averaging seven points a game. Yeah, he gets 6.3 rebounds, another 6 assists. But he's terrible. He's terrible, Smitty. He shoots 43% from the free throw line, bro. 43%. If I was a coach, I would do the hack-a-bent. That's what I would do. I would send this dude to the line every single time he had the ball. He's terrible. Now, I get that he's had a bunch of injuries. I get that. I understand he's got mental health concerns too. But, if he's smart, he should seek out whoever Julius Randle sought out last, in the offseason and get himself back on track mentally. Because if Julius Randle can do it in the big city, Ben Simmons has no excuse. He's 26 years old, and he just really needs to get it together. He's got it. I mean, for the money they're paying him and the role that, he needs to, in order for the Nets to be any good, Ben Simmons has to be good. And when you look at these numbers, they're awful, bro. I mean, in February, he got shut down on February 15th. Before that, in 5 games, dude wasn't even averaging 4 points a game. He wasn't even getting his 4 assists. He wasn't even getting his 5 rebounds. It gets worse and worse with him, Smitty. It's excuse after excuse. Now, I get it. He might have some mental issues, but dude, I mean, either shut it down and get yourself right or, get somebody on the mental health team to get yourself better. Because right now, Ben Simmons is an embarrassment, not only to the Nets, but he's an embarrassment to the NBA. So that's where I stand with Simmons, bro. I know I'm killing him, but with the money he's making and who he got traded for, I have to kill him. I have to.
No doubt, man. And don't I know, obviously, as you guys, if you haven't already figured out, I am from Australia, if you can't tell by the stupid accent. So therefore, Ben Simmons is an Australian. I have rescinded his citizenship for the time being, though. I do want to give a disclaimer, guys. Obviously, we do care about mental health over here. It is a big, topic of mine. I've been affected by it personally and know people that have been too, and unfortunately lost people. So we are not playing that down at all. But it seems that he's come through the other side of it for the most part. There's a hesitancy there, though, from Ben Simmons. And we've spoke about this before, Eddie. I've spoke about this on Spaces. Look, like Phil said, it looks like the Monstars stole his powers. He's not wrong. And Ebony hits it on the head. Ben only wants the fame, not the grind. Actually, we said this yesterday in the space. I said, I think right now he just wants to collect his paycheck and get on with things. It seems like he's lost the love of the game, whatever's caused that. It seems like he can't get over it, man. And this was a guy that was touted not just to be the best player to have come out of Australia in the NBA, but possibly one of the best players ever. They did a recreation on Slam magazine, if I'm not mistaken, or one of those, and they of the recreation of the LeBron picture with the basketball on and the Jordan All-Star game jersey. This is how highly this guy was touted, and man, his refusal to score and all sorts of things. It's just been such a letdown. There's other things going on, and I'm under the impression and of the knowledge that in his camp they have been advising him fairly poorly. He feels like he brings more to the game than just scoring, and there might be a little bit of a case there of he's not going to be told what to do. And unfortunately, he's only hurting himself and his teams that he's on when he does that, because he does offer so much more, and he is a unicorn ultimately. Even without that jump shot, he could be so much better of a player than he is right now. And he's been shut down now, and he was almost out of the rotation. So, Delano Still Jr. says Eddie can't kill Ben Simmons any more than he has killed his own career. I don't think anyone can, Delano, right now, and that's a great way to end this point and put a exclamation point on this one. So, I mean, Eddie, that's Ben Simmons, your second one, man, and that's a great one. Smitty, a rescue ranger from down under, says, and a 19 con man. You guys are funny in the chat, man. It's so funny. Delano Steele says the Nets should be allowed to demand a buyout or play him at power forward. Jacques Vaughn actually spoke about that and said it's too hard to play him on the floor because he doesn't shoot the three with another big. Therefore, it really stunts your spacing of the floor. And then he also said when you put the ball in his hands, it takes the ball out of someone else's hands on the floor. So they're in a tough position. He was almost out of the rotation anyway before the shutdown. But without further ado, I'm going to jump into my second weakest link, and that is none other than LaMelo Ball. Oh. I know you guys are going to think this one's a bit rough because he's been injured and he's had some good numbers, but this guy just can't get right. Just cannot get right. He's shooting an abysmal 41% field goal from the field on the season. Granted, his 3-point percentage is nearly similar, which is kind of sad because that is above the league average, but his field goal percentage well below. He's averaging 3.6 turnovers as well on the season. The team record of 20 and 44. Look, his numbers to me are the definition of empty stats. 23.3 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 8.4 assists. This guy just hasn't really contributed to winning. Jigger Man says LaMelo no ball. I think I think it's LaMelo no ankle at the moment. He's can't get right. He has also been shut down for the season. I don't want to see tough guys on a guy that's injured per se, but look, it's odd, man. It's odd. It's he now obviously granted Delano Steele Ball family bones is literally the weakest link. First Lonzo, now LaMelo. It's not looking good for the Ball family, Eddie. I must say that. This guy looks like he's, it's great to be out there having fun. I've seen videos of him though, and I never, ever want to, play that down. It is great to be out there having fun, but it's almost like he doesn't take it serious enough sometimes. I'm not going to actually question, that too hardly, but it's just something I notice. I don't know, man. I'm not sure whether it's a case if he doesn't want to be in Charlotte or whatever it is. Obviously, he can't get his body right either. The same ankle constantly giving him trouble. But he's only played 36 games this season, and he's done for the rest of the season now. Granted, their season is 2. It's got a pin in it, fork in it. It's done. Delano Still Jr. says he needs some milk. Yeah, I think he does. Get him some calcium. But look, Eddie, I don't want to go too long on LaMelo Ball. It's a bit rough because of the injury, but ultimately right now, because he is the centerpiece in Charlotte, he is their weakest link. He is severely hampering them right now and holding them back, I feel, with his inability to get on the court. And I know it's not really necessarily on him, but as they say, availability is the best ability. The family is made of tissue paper, says Con Man. So I think that sort of puts an exclamation point on this. And it's those Triple B sneakers. Yeah, of course. No support in none of those. I wouldn't want to wear those. They fall apart on your feet, But that's my second, guys. I'm going to leave it there. And I think, that sort of sums up LaMelo Ball, man. And the Charlotte Hornets are just having a terrible, terrible season.
Yeah, they're headed towards they're going for the head of the lottery, Smitty. Now that LaMelo is down, they're done. So we'll see how far they can fall. But they're looking to push all their chips into getting either Scoot or Victor, man. That's what they're doing. So. Listen, I respect the decision with LaMelo. He's, hasn't played. And when he has played, he's not been impressive. So I respect the decision, bro. I do.
No doubt. So, look, that was LaMelo Ball. Eddie, let's go straight now into your last one of your weakest link choices. Tell us who it is, Eddie. Tell us who it is.
All right. Before I get into this, let me just give some context here, okay? I'll just go into it. It's Smitty. It's going to be RJ Barrett now. Okay?
This one's going to go down like a lead balloon.
Okay. All right. RJ Barrett. Okay. The reason why I picked RJ Barrett is because of this. The Knicks basically have been on fire. Okay. They've been 11-2 in their last 13 games. They've been absolutely phenomenal. They've been winning nonstop. The Josh Hart edition, we're watching the Knicks games every night. We're in the post games. We know what's going on. But to me, the Knicks, the weakest link in the Knicks has been RJ Barrett. And there's some reason behind it, Smitty. I looked at RJ Barrett's numbers in February, and that's the reason I picked him. His numbers in February are basically his worst of the season, Smitty. I mean, I have him right in front of me. I'm going to read him out to you. He's shooting 40.8 from field goal percentage. That's his field goal percentage, 40.8. This is a guy, RJ, that's supposed to take it and score at the rack, hit down those three-pointers. He hasn't been doing any of that. His three-point percentage is 28.3, Smitty. 28.3, bro. You got to do better than that. This is a guy that's supposed to be, the third best guy on their team. All right, the third best guy. And he's been anything but that in the month of February. 28.3% from three-point is unacceptable, Smitty. I'm sorry. He's not even averaging 17 points a game in February. 16.8 points per game. 4.3 rebounds. And another horrible not horrible from, free throw, but 72.5. It's one of his lowest months of the season. He's been their weakest link. I'm sorry. I know it might be controversial, but you could even dig deeper, okay? All right. So I went into the advanced stats, okay? And I looked at it, all right? His defensive win shares is 1.5. Okay, that's good. Everybody, claims, he's got bad defenses now. So from a defensive win share, it's actually not that bad. It's
around the where you sort of start to say this is a decent number, an okay number is 1.5 for defense.
Right. So I'm not going to get on his defense, but his offense 0.5. Then you look at the VORP, the value over replacement. Dude's at a minus 0.3, Smitty. 0.3 for the season. I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. So then I looked at, there's a guy I always compare RJ to. It's Kelly Oubre. Okay? I always tell people, if you want to compare a guy to RJ Barrett, it's Kelly Oubre. And everybody talks, well, RJ's only 22 years old. He's young. I get it. And I'm with you guys. I think he's got room to grow. But I looked at Kelly Oubre. Now, Kelly Oubre at age of 22, okay, he wasn't averaging as many points as RJ. He's not even close. But when you look at the advanced numbers, Kelly Oubre is killing RJ Barrett at age 22. 1.4 offensive win share, 2.3 defensive win share, and value over replacement player is a 0.2 at age 22. So RJ Barrett, to me, if he could get it going, the Knicks are going to be a hard out in the playoffs. They're going to be a hard out. But until he does, RJ Barrett is the New York Knicks' weakest link, Smitty. I'm sorry, and I have the numbers to stand by it.
Eddie, of course, and I appreciate you bringing those numbers. I appreciate advanced stats for sure. We've had this conversation before, but I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here on this one for all the Knicks fans that are tuning in. Obviously, we have a larger Knicks fan following and community from Twitter for those of you who are in here that are part of that or don't know. We do Knicks I do a pre-game, Eddie does a post-game space. So, look, I agree with you, and my biggest thing was I was sick of the idea or the notion or the narrative or whatever of, he just starts the season slow. My thing was he signed that contract, that new contract that doesn't kick over until next year. My thing was once he signed that, now I know he's not on that money this year. This is the last year of his rookie scale deal. Was once you sign that contract, he needs to now no longer. And I mean, look, we could maybe push it forward a year, but by next year, definitely, I wanted it this year, but no more excuse, no more slow start. We saw another slow start, and then he looked really good. Remember, he looked super good. He nearly pushed
December. He was great.
Yeah, he had that near 50-point game. There was and there were signs, and then he went bad. And look, Eddie, I know that the defensive win share actually sort of supports him having a fairly decent season defensively, in terms of the numbers. But this is definitely a guy where I'm going to trust the eye test a little bit as well, because he, by his own standards, RJ Barrett once Tom Thibodeau, like we got Tom Thibodeau and such, had become a better defensive player, and that seems to have regressed again. So he's become a bit of a turnstile at times. Granted, though, he has been decent.
He's a product of the team, Smitty. He's a product of the team defense right now. That's why his defensive win shares are there, because he's a product of the Thibodeau system.
Of course. And now don't get me wrong, we add the context of this is a Knicks team that's flying right now, so it's not a bad thing for this guy to be the weakest link. If anything, it actually means that the Knicks, and a few people have said it in there. Delano Steele Jr. says, RJ Barrett is inconsistent, of course. And then Ebony says he is struggling and still average decent numbers as a third option. He gets it together and the league is really in trouble. And she's right, if he does get it together. But that's the case. It's this if he gets it together, we're sort of starting to wonder when. Now, I know a lot of people say he's only 22 and a lot of guys don't come into their prime till around 24-ish. So people are asking for time. But I guess a number 3 pick, and in the modern era with the highlight culture, as they say, and I'm going to reference your guy again, Eddie here, Mr. Kuzma. I think the nuance, it's killed the nuance of basketball with the highlight culture, and maybe that's why RJ Barrett cops a little bit more flack than he should. But ultimately, he has a ways to go. As Jigga says, Eddie used to do a space till he put RJ on the list. So, hey man, I'm going to wrap it up there with RJ, I think, though. But look, I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit, because one thing I noticed yesterday, Eddie, and this is the last thing I'll say on RJ, is he said in his post game, with this team and the way it's constructed, it's not always going to be a night. Some nights it is, some nights it's not, and you just got to do what you can do. And ultimately, he's had some good games over the last, three or so. And I feel like he's starting to find a groove, though, Eddie. I feel like we may be seeing a turning of the tide.
That's the story of his career, Smitty. He's consistently inconsistent. Come on, you're giving him too much flack. You can give him.
He's never been the third option. He's never been the third option in terms of. So he's got to find this. He's got to find his spot, Eddie. And I'm sure and you'd be happy to, if he turns it around. You'll be the first to say I was wrong, or he got it right, or whatever. But I'm with you in the sense of it's a constant. He give him a chance. How many chances do you give? So.
I'm praying he gets it together, Smitty. I'm praying. I want to see this team make a fucking playoff run, man. I want to see us go far, man. I had enough. I hope he does better. I really do.
Yeah, of course. Delano Steele Jr. says, if RJ Barrett develops a more consistent mid-range and a turnaround jumper, he'll regain the trust of the fan base. I tend to agree. We spoke about this. Some people liken him to Paul Pierce. But Paul Pierce was slow, but he was methodical, so everything was well thought out. That's what RJ is. He's a bit of a slow mover. But when you're a slow guy like a Jokic or a Paul Pierce, you have to make sure every move counts, because then you become super dangerous. You're either fast or you're methodical in this league, and it's very rarely you're the two. So, but with that said, Eddie, that's obviously your last one for the weakest link. I'm now going to give you my last one before we maybe head into something a little bit of an extension of this. And my last one for weakest link, Eddie, is none other than Chris Middleton of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Chris Middleton.
Now again, Eddie, I know you're a little bit surprised by this one because of
I don't know about this one, Smitty.
Because of the chat we had. Now, look, I know you're a bit of a Middleton fan. You've got a little bit of a fan for Middleton. Look, I don't mind him. I don't mind him at all. I don't mind his game, but again, this is probably going to seem a little bit rough because he's been injured, but he's only amassed 20 games this year. He's at the moment coming off the bench for the Bucks, which is odd, but they're obviously killing it. So don't get me wrong. This is nothing to do with the way the team's going. This is, again, a case of like the RJ Barrett. The team's doing well. If this is the weakest link and this is your issue, then damn, watch out. That's the way this one is. So just a bit of context, guys. This is a case of, he is the weakest link because of the piece he's meant to be to this team. Look, 20 games played, 42% from the field and 29.9 from three on the season, which is just it's not on. It's realistically not for the person that Chris Middleton is. 13.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, and 4.2 assists. Now the numbers aren't too bad, and granted he's only played 20, and he's dealing with some injuries. But look, he is the absolute weakest link for this team right now. He's holding them back from ultimately being. For mine, if Middleton gets it right and finds his way back into either the starting lineup or he becomes a sixth man per se, if that was the route they were to take, Eddie, I think this team is you could almost write them in as 100% playing in the NBA Finals.
So, Smitty, let me ask you a question with Middleton.
Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe a load management thing with them? Like you know how the Clippers are always, managing Kawhi's minutes, managing Paul George, now it's Westbrook. Do you think it's like just, I know because he's coming off the injury thing. Do you think maybe they're just, because they're so good, the Bucks are so good. Do you think maybe they're just kind of easing them, to across the season, just get there slowly, and then once the playoff starts, boom, put them right back into it. Do you think that's what they're doing?
Look, that's a great point. I think you're right because anyone that knows Mike Budenholzer, he is a guy that not necessarily a huge load manager, sort of the way that things have been done with Kawhi by his coaches, but he sort of will pull Giannis out of the game at the 34-minute mark per game and rest him because they're so damn good. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that's why, because I expected Middleton to be off the bench by now. I wouldn't be surprised if they're using that bench role to work him back in and work him up for the playoffs, Eddie. I truly believe that. But as I'm saying right now, even from the bench, he hasn't been as consistent or as effective as he probably could be. But granted, this team is rolling, Eddie. So this one's really just a bit of a nitpick. I will say that. I will go ahead and say that. And shout outs again to the chat quickly. Shout outs to Ebony, my guy Ariel, for coming in. But yeah, back on this one. Look, I think it's a bit of a nitpick. And realistically though, it's just saying that if this guy gets it right, this Bucks team could very much become a two-time championship team, and along with it, Giannis, Drew and Middleton out of the big three there. So I'm interested to see how that works out, Eddie. I think you're right though. I think they are maybe using the bench role as somewhat of a load management without actually sitting him out because he needs to play games because, as I said, he's only played 20 on the year. So I'm interested to see how that comes together because he was huge for them in that finals when they won, the championship. And if he gets it right, again, I can't stress this enough. This team becomes super dangerous. Now you've got another person you've got to worry about. Obviously, they've got some nice pieces in Grayson Allen and role players and Javon Carter and stuff. And obviously, Brook Lopez being an absolute, an absolute sort of somewhat of a rim protector. He's not as mobile as he could be, but he is a great shot blocker and he can knock down the three. So I mean, look, they've got some options, man. They've got some options, but that's my last weakest link, Eddie. I wanted to throw you a little bit off with that one because, I know that's a little bit left of center, but this is the segment, Eddie. It's not necessarily about the worst players on the worst teams. It's about the guy that might be holding back the teams that are flying. The teams that are flying, the weakest link. And it might not always be the guy that you think. I'm not going to go and pick the guy that's a fringe player that can't get a role. I'm going to pick the guy that should be doing more that isn't. In most cases. So
let me ask you. Let's say Middleton does get it right. What's the Bucks ceiling for you? I mean,
they automatically become better than the Celtics for me if Middleton gets it right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. This team is dangerous. Drew Holiday's playing probably one of the best careers, best of his career. And again, like I said, look at how they're flying. It's the pieces like the Grayson Allens and the Javon Carters with their defense. And those types of pieces, man, they've got enough there, right? So, 16 games straight, and that's with Middleton off the bench or injured or whatever. Hard to say this team's not an absolute dominant force. They've just taken the first seed in the Eastern Conference, and they might even actually have the best league-wide record now. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what it was when I last saw it. So, interesting to see, Eddie. But I'm going to leave it there with Chris Middleton, and we're going to slide now into our next segment. So guys, we just gave you a wrap of the three players, obviously, that we feel are the weakest link. And now, back of that, just before we get into that, I wanted to take a chance and say shout out to the Knights of Dejan crew. KOD Media is Knights of Dejan Media. Shout out to all them, all the Knights that are in the chat and have showed up to support. If you guys don't know what that is, that's an NFT project and much more, that sort of powers this and makes all this possible. So shout out to the Knights of Dejan, man, the whole community, a great community, and every single one of you that's pulled up. We appreciate you, man. But if you wanted to check it out, there's a comment that's been thrown in by Morning Brew Sports, Knights of Dejan.io. If you want to go and check that out, what that's all about. But Eddie, this segues us now into our segment, which is called Ship 'em. So roll the tape, fellas. All right, Eddie,
Smitty.
so let me quickly give a rundown on this to those. So like I said, we just gave our 3 weakest links. Now ship them is an extension of that, and this is a little segment that you guys got to preview. We did a little bit different last time. We've changed it up since then. So what we're going to do is we're going to give each of our worst one out of those 3 players we just spoke about. And we're going to choose to ship them, and then maybe we'll add a little bit more onto that as to why. So without further ado, I'm going to let Eddie take the floor first. Eddie, who is the player that you're shipping, where, and why?
Okay. The player I'm shipping is going to be Ben Simmons, dude. I am shipping Ben Simmons back to Australia, dude. I'm shipping him back to you, Smitty. Shout out to Recap on the design for this one. This dude is terrible. I mean, listen, there we go on the design. I'm taking Ben Simmons. I'm putting him on a ship, and I'm sending him over to Australia. I never want to see this dude again. He's total garbage. He deserves to sit with the garbage cans. He's terrible, and I have nothing left to say. I want to take his American visa back from him because that's how bad he's been. He's been a nightmare for the Nets. He's been a nightmare in general. So, Ben Simmons, goodbye. I am shipping you back to Australia, and you could go play in the professional league over there, bro.
Hey, I told you, man. I told you. And I look sorry to the chat. You know, I know you feel like we might be going through this again, but this is the way we wanted to do this. We want you to know, that's right. So Sunil said it, but Ben Simmons' Australian citizenship it's rejected. It's been renounced. Stamp, cut it up. He can't come back here, man. I'm sorry, Eddie. Maybe send him to the boonies or something like that, wherever you want. But he cannot come back here. Look, Eddie, man. I didn't. We sort of obviously spoke about it before. But for those of you who missed it, this is Eddie's worst pick of the weakest link.
It has to be him.
It has to be right. I mean, look, he started the season out with 28 minutes a game. It declined before, obviously, the shutdown to about 11 minutes a game. And as I said before, Jacques Vaughn just doesn't have a place for him in this team, man. Just zero place, man. Shout out to Smooth in the chat. There's zero place for him in this team. And like people said, people think that there's no room for him in this league. Shout out to Pudge and Ice and all the fellas in Australia tuning in. There's no place for him in this league, honestly, Eddie. Let's get a little bit more candid about it. Like
Smitty, the guy's he's supposed to be a playmaker, and what is he doing, bro? What is he doing? He was brought on the Nets to be a playmaker. I mean, he's been there over a year and a half now. Guys played 42 games. It's embarrassing. It really is, bro. It really is. He can't shoot. And then he can't, we foul him, go to the free throw line. He was even worse there. So, what else is there to say? Then on top of it, they're paying this dude almost $40 million a year, bro. And he's on on a max contract. The dude is absolute garbage, bro. He's absolute garbage, Smitty. So I'm sorry, but you guys are going to have to take him, man. You guys are going to have to take him. You're taking him off our hands, bro.
Rejected at the border. Sunil says in the chat, New Zealand wants him. Be my guest. That's fine. I'll send him to New Zealand. As you guys might know, or if you don't know, New Zealand is Australia's arch enemy in a lot of sports, and we can send him there, man. He definitely seems like a total New Zealander to me. Sorry to any Kiwis that are viewing this right now. We do love you, but it's just he's not for us anymore. He's not for us, man. Shout outs to our Smooth man in the chat, our guy there, and also sub to the channel, man. Sub to the new channel, Morning Brew Sports. It's there now in the chat. Smooth says, who's worse, Ben Simmons or Evan Fournier? Both being useless. Well, at least Evan Fournier looks for his shot, right? That's a great question. At least he looks for his shot when he does get the chance. But hey,
Fournier had that one good game for us, so you got to give him that. Simmons, he's a whole.
Well, I'm just glad that he's on that side of New York and not the outside. But hey, look, that's been your person that you're going to ship, Eddie. And look, man, I'm going to return to sender on that. But for now, we'll figure out the schematics around that. I'm going to go straight into mine, and okay. I'm shipping. I know he's played in Australia, but I'm shipping LaMelo Ball. I'm shipping him. I don't care where he goes. He can go to back to play in Lithuania, Latvia, wherever it was that he played professionally when he was young. Free shipping. I hope so, because it's damn expensive to ship out of this country right now. But yeah, man, LaMelo got to have been the worst for me purely because he's just not offering up anything to this team right now. This is the number 3 overall pick. He was meant to change and turn that franchise around. Now, granted, I hate to say this, the GOAT hasn't really managed that franchise as good as he could have. It's been a bit lackluster, especially ever since they rebranded back as the Charlotte Hornets after the Bobcats moniker for a little while there.
What a nightmare.
But look, man, LaMelo Ball, like I said before, he just cannot get on the court, man. This guy right now is, he needs to go play with Jello, wherever Jello is playing. Leangelo, his brother, that's the only one that's healthy right now and can't get a gig. But maybe LaMelo Ball needs to go and find himself there. As you see pictured, he's been, shout out to Recap again. He's been had the head burst, Peter Griffin, the old knee. It's always something. It's always something with LaMelo. But look, man, I'm sending him. You know what, Eddie? I'm sending him down to Florida. He can go down there and play in some sort of rec league in Florida where you are. Maybe play in the Y or something if you've got a YMCA down there and get himself right.
LA Fitness.
Yeah, well, there you go. He can go play with the LA Fitness guys and get it right because this guy's just not offering much to his team, man. And as I said, it's hollow numbers. It's hollow numbers. So look, Eddie, man, that's been Ship 'em, guys. That has been Ship 'em. If you've got anything you want to add to that, Eddie, otherwise we might just go into a little bit of roundtable and take some questions from the chat or something like that.
All I'll tell you on LaMelo is I'm going to give him one more year. I'll give him one more year. Let's see what he's got. You know what I'm saying? I know he's been Mr. Glass. I know he gets hurt all the time, but I do see game in this dude. I think he's got game. I think he has potential. I do. I really do. But has he been, awful and hurt? Yes. But what I saw from him last year was, very different from this year. So I'll give him one more year before I just say, like, this dude is done. He's shot. So I'll give him one more year. I get what you're saying, though. The Ball family, they do not have a good reputation right now. They just, they automatically always hurt and overpaid. And that's been the story with the Ball family ever since LeVar came up with the big baller brand. So, listen, I'll give him one more season before I'm just like, yo, he's garbage, this, that, and the other. One more year, Smitty. And then then we'll take the gloves off and then I'll be like, fuck.
Look, Eddie, that's fair. I'm just basing it off what's right now. Look, Smooth said in the chat, this is a good question. Which is more disappointing for injuries, LaMelo Ball or Zion Williamson? I'm gonna have to say Zion, but LaMelo Ball is not far behind him at this point. No. Not far behind him at all.
The reason why I'll say Zion, Smitty, is just because the expectations were so high when Zion came into this league. I mean, remember they were talking about him, taking off the rest of the season to be like, because he might get hurt, when his shoe fell off in Duke. I mean, those expectations were insane. I mean, people were comparing him to be, a Hall of Famer right when he came in the league. So I got to go with Zion, but you're right. The expectations with LaMelo Ball were very, very, very high. And this year he's been a disappointment. He's been a disappointment, but I have to go Zion here. I have to.
Yeah, of course. Now, look, let's throw it to the chat. Let's quickly throw it to the chat before I get to that. Eddie's suit is fire. If you didn't know, Eddie's got the sparkly blue jacket on right now. But let's throw it to the chat, guys. Let us know in the chat. Brutus, my guys in here. What's up, Brutus? Let's go to the chat. Who do you think got it right with their, the shipped player? Was it me, or was it myself, Smitty, or was it Eddie? Let us know in the chat. Which one of us got it right out of the the players that we mentioned and the players that we decided to get rid of. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Was it Simmons? Eddie's choice of Simmons that deserves to be shipped, or was it my choice? I know you guys are probably going to choose Simmons because that is a consensus. I feel like I need to almost concede on that one, Eddie. I think you got me there on this one because Simmons is public enemy number one. Almost in the NBA right now. But let us know, man. Let us know. Project Nerds is now Ja Morant beating up little kids. That's a story for another day. But hey, Eddie, man, look, another thing we've got Smooth. Smooth said Simmons, and I almost agree. I
don't think there's a question about it, Smitty. I mean, LaMelo, who were you to take? If I just put a gun to your head, LaMelo or Simmons, come on, bro, you know it.
Yeah, of course. Well, at least one's at least trying, right? I mean, seemingly. Seemingly. So, Simmons hands down, of course. And then everybody says, "Oh shit, Ben first. He's street clothes and he does the Snell game when he does play." That's true, man. Shout outs to all the kind comments in there. If you guys want to just keep rolling those comments in of who you thought, won, it's most likely Eddie, man. I think he hit the nail on the head here with the Simmons choice. But look, Eddie, man. Something I also want to touch on. Obviously, it's a bit of bias, but the Knicks are flying right now. We had another great game yesterday. Let's just head out with a bit of a wrap around the league as well again, or something of who you've enjoyed watching so far this season and who you think's been a bit of a disappointment.
I mean, I've enjoyed watching the Celtics, man. I know. Listen, I as a Knicks fan, I know it's I shouldn't say this. Listen, you could say whatever you want, but when I look at the Celtics, I look at I see championship team. I'm sorry, I see it. I look at Tatum. I look at Brown. I look at that bench. I mean, that bench is mob deep. I mean, they're the most well-rounded team. They changed the coach, and Mazzulla's done a fantastic job. Nobody thought the Celtics were going to be this great. I mean, everybody, listen, they were picked to win a lot of games. I think they were over and under 54.5, if I'm not mistaken. They're obviously going to pass that number, but shout out to Mazzulla and the job he's done up there. Shout out to Brad Stevens. Shout out to the job he's done as president of basketball operations. He's put together, to me, a perfect roster. They're that they got Malcolm Brogdon. They basically got him for nothing. He's come up. I mean, he hits big shot after big shot. He's coming out. I mean, you got that dude Hauser out there that's dropping threes. Grant Williams. I mean, to me, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. So the Boston Celtics, to me, they're there right now. Listen, whether you hate it or like it, they're the team to beat. I think they're the best team in the NBA. And right now, I look at the Boston Celtics as the favorite right now to win the NBA championship, and I stand by that. And my man Tatum's balling, bro.
Get out of here
last night.
Get out of here.
He's the closest thing to LeBron, bro. He's the closest thing to LeBron. I'm sorry.
Now you.
I said it.
Look, before I shout out to Jonathan, he's a Celtics fan, and he said respect for being a real Knicks fan. I'm going to just say this: that is just sickening to my stomach to hear that the Celtics are the favorite. Whether it's true or not, Eddie, that's not what I want to hear right now. I want to hear that the Celtics that the Celtics are bums. They're not going to do it. For me, as I said before,
what's not to like about them, Smitty?
Hey man, I'm all on the Bucks train, Eddie. As I said before, I'm all on the Bucks train. Boston, I can't do it. It's not in me. I actually recently did an episode of another show where I spoke about the old 2007-8 championship team. That's as nice as I'm ever going to get about the Celtics. But Ariel put a question in the chat, and we've got it up on the screen now. What are you guys' thoughts on Dallas? Are they a serious threat? I'm not too sure if they ended up winning today against Philadelphia. If someone could fill me in on that in the chat, that would be great. But they haven't been great since the acquisition of Kyrie Irving. I was a little bit skeptical on, who would handle the ball because I don't see neither, Luka or Kyrie as spot-up shooters, and someone has to concede at some point. I don't know, man. I think Dallas is in a tough spot. It looks like Ariel's saying they came back from down 25, which is different because they were up 27 or something the other day, or something ridiculous, and ended up losing. So
Luka had 42, Irvin had 40 as Mavs outlast 76ers. It's pretty impressive, bro.
Okay, well there you go. That's their best showing. That's their best showing yet, which is great. I still don't. I look to answer Ariel's question. I'm not sold on them yet. I've got to see more than just because I believe Philly are a bit fraudish too. They can be beaten on any given night. I think they're frauds as far as I'm concerned. Philadelphia. So I've enjoyed Eddie. I've enjoyed definitely watching the Bucks outside of the Knicks. I think they're the one that's going to come out of the East now. Like I said, Chris Middleton's still not firing on all cylinders, and they're doing this.
Well, I mean,
forget about it.
I mean, the Bucks obviously they're the hottest team in the NBA. I mean, what is it, 16 in a row?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. To me, the East is a two-team race, and the West is going to be a whole different ball game, bro. In the East we have Milwaukee and the Celtics, and then everybody else you have the pretenders and the contenders. Like you said, Philly. I like Philly a little bit more than you do. I think they can be dangerous, but what have they ever done in the playoffs? What have they ever done? What did they ever do? Ever since they lost Kawhi, they've been, nothing. They've been nothing. So they have to prove so much to me, the 76ers. But again, easily 2-team race in the East. The West, bro, that's what I want to hear from you, bro. The West is a different story. I want to know who you got coming out of the West, who you like. What are the teams you like coming out of the West, bro?
Well, I mean, obviously, we sort of touched on this a little bit at the start. When we spoke about Phoenix, we saw what Durant did yesterday. But again, this was against the Charlotte team that was without LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
So it should have been a win. It should have been a win.
It's a layup, bro. It's a layup.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But look, obviously, on paper, I'm going to give the Phoenix just that. On paper, 100%. I have to hand that to them. They're definitely got to be a threat. Outside of that, I'm actually looking at, and look, I don't see them as they're young, but they're going to make a push, and I'm super excited. This is a team I've loved watching this year, and I actually said, to a lot of people that started this year, they're going to be better. I didn't think they would be this good, but it's the Sacramento Kings, man. I think they're great. I think the Sacramento Kings are doing, obviously, what have they got? The highest offensive rating of all time as a team, and they're in the top 4 or something for defensive ratings right now in the league. The Kings are going to be, make a little bit of noise, I think. How far they'll go, that'll only be limited by their inexperience. But I'm enjoying the Kings. I still think, though, out of the West, I think Memphis is going to shoot themselves in the foot. I don't think they're good enough to come playoff time.
They're a bad road team.
I think they're still all talk, all bark, no bite. It's going to be Phoenix and look, Denver, though. I'm not sold on Denver, but adding Thomas Bryant and Reggie Jackson, maybe they're a little bit better than I first credited them for. And if Slater, if you're in here, man, Slater, if you're in here, thumbs down to you. I didn't say this as far as I'm concerned. And when we speak next, I never spoke well of the Nuggets. But hey, no, man, Eddie, look, I think it's a 2-team race, but I'd like to see what the Kings do. I'm very interested to see how they go.
You really think the Kings can win the West?
I think they can get to the Western Conference Final. I don't know about winning it. Depends. Yeah, I think they could get to the Western Conference Final.
I mean, listen, I like De'Aaron Fox. I like Sabonis. I like their bench, but I don't know if they're that good, bro. I don't know if they're ready yet. I still think they're young. Listen, I don't know. I like Mike Brown too as a coach, but I don't know. I think they're still. I think this isn't going to be their year. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I understand it.
I don't know. That's just what we could go into that, but I don't know, man. They're just doing it. I don't think the Kings could. I don't know. I don't think they could get to. I disagree with you, bro. I don't think they could get to the Western Conference Finals. I think they're going to get involved.
I will say this. I don't think they will get there. I think they have the potential to get there. I think they have the potential to get there, and what I'm sort of saying, I guess, is I wouldn't be surprised if they got there based off their play. I'm with Ebony though. I think their inexperience, like I said before when I led into it, was I think if anything is going to stop them from getting anywhere, it will be the lack of experience. And I also wouldn't be surprised if they got bounced in the first round. Now you might be thinking, Smitty, so what are you saying? Well, what I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the Western Conference Final because of how well they are when they're up and about. But at the same time, their inexperience. I have to be realistic. I could totally see them getting bounced in the first round due to that inexperience. But you asked the question, Eddie. You said who have I enjoyed watching? It's definitely been the Kings. But like I said,
I didn't mean to jump you there when I did.
Oh, of course. No, this is what it is. It's debate. We talk. And look, I'm not going to stand on and die on that Kings hill necessarily. But Eddie, who have you liked out of the West? Tell me who you've liked or who you think.
I mean, bro, I have to pick. If I'm going to pick a team out of the West, I have to go. I'm going to go with Memphis. And the reason I'll go with Memphis is because I still think they have another level in them. Now, I get that they've disappointed this year. I get that they have. I know at home they're pretty much unstoppable. I know they have a losing record on the road. I know all that. I know Ja Morant's been playing out of his mind. He's putting people on posters every day of the week. I love what Jaren Jackson brings to the table. I even like, I love the way Memphis plays. I love their tempo. I love everything about them. But they have a lot to prove to me, bro. They have to prove to me. So, they have a lot to prove. And when I look at the West, I think that Memphis could win it. But I also at the same time think that they could get bounced. I think that they could get bounced too. So
very much similar how I feel about the Kings. You sort of have a similar.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they made the finals, But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they got bounced in the first round because they're just all over the place. Yes, they have the superstar in Ja, but there's something about that team that just, I don't know, man. There's something there, but they are awesome on one night, and then another night they look like shit. So it is what it is.
Well, they're a very well coached team. Shout outs to their coach over there, Taylor Jenkins, man. They're a very well coached team for a young coach and fairly young coach and a young team. I'm with you, man. I feel the same way. And if people are getting confused, what we're ultimately saying, or what I'm saying about the Kings, I think, and what Eddie's saying about the Grizzlies is we believe in their potential of what they could do when they're doing their best to get them to those spots. I wouldn't say finals for Kings. Obviously, Eddie said he could see the Grizzlies in the finals, so it's a little bit difference there. But at the same token, these are teams that could very much just get bounced, just straight out bounced. Another team I've enjoyed watching that hasn't done as well, Eddie, I will say, out of the West, and that's because I've become a fairly avid fan of this one player, is the Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards, man. I enjoy what he brings to the game. I love the way he has developed. I still think he's got a ways to go, and I think he's going to be a super dangerous player. His mindset from when he came into the league until now is totally different. He said some things that rubbed some people the wrong way when he came in, and he's now since changed his mindset. And it's not just a case of, oh, well, he's saying things that people want to hear now, or that I find that he should say. No, he genuinely, you can see that he's matured. He doesn't care about the small stuff. He's there to play ball. He's an absolute hooper, and ultimately, it's shown in his work. He's become better, become more consistent. He's up there in top of the table in terms of steals. He's one of in the top echelon of steals per game. He's just stroking it well from three. Pause. But let
me ask you a question on Edwards. What's been the difference in his game from last year to this year? What do you think has basically propelled him this year? Is it motivation? What is it?
I think it's he's put the onus on himself to be better. So he shot the three ball much better. He takes better shots. He's not afraid of shots as well now. But last year maybe you'd be like, oh, why would you take that shot? There's a difference. I feel there's a difference of that some guys are afraid of a shot but will take it because they're young and they're scared. Other guys are not afraid at the moment, and it might be a questionable shot, but it's the confidence that he shows in some of those shots, and he hits some of them. His three-point shooting's come a long way. His defense, and like he said, he goes. People asked him earlier in this year, you haven't put anyone on. I think there was one stage where he hadn't even had a dunk on the season, right? Through X amount of games, and they were like, "You're going to have a dunk," and it wasn't until like a couple of days later, and he said, "Look, I don't just dunk the ball." So he's already looking out for his future, his health. Which is great, man, because we've seen guys come and go throughout the years. Eddie, you remember, springs to mind. Obviously, MJ did it. He went from being super athletic as well as being able to shoot, but then pushed into more of a shooting game as he got older, or a multifaceted three-level scorer. Ray Allen is a big one that springs to mind. Was an absolute freak athletically, could put it down on anyone's head, and then became almost explicitly a shooter in his older age. Anthony Edwards is doing that at a younger age, and he'll have this unbelievable arsenal. His hops will not go to waste, but neither will his shot will not sit there idling, not getting better. So I cannot praise this guy enough for what he's done and what he's sort of doing over there in Minnesota. They lost Karl Anthony Towns for a bit. Gobert was out. Things were looking bad. They obviously moved on D'Angelo Russell, and he has just taken it all in his stride, and he's carried them where he can. And sure, he's had some bad nights, but at the end of the day, he's done well, Eddie. I don't know how you feel about him, but he's done great, man. Shout outs to you, B, man, and shout outs to the chat again. But Eddie, I mean,
Edwards, Smitty, to me, he's just a guy with balls, man. He's just got it. He's got the it factor. He's got, like you said, he's got a couple levels, different levels to his game. He's just it, man. Like what he's done this year in Minnesota. Listen. They didn't start out too great. That Gobert trade was looking terrible, but they've gotten back on track. They've gotten back. Shout out to you, Rels. They've gotten back on track, and lately they've been winning. So I got to give props to Anthony Edwards. I'll ask you this: do you think he's got best player in the game level talent, like superstar level? Like, do you think he could hit that level, or like that's what I ask you?
I think he could be a top 5 player in the league at some point. I'm not going to outright say best player in the league, just because.
Compare him to MJ. That's why.
because he's playing both sides of the ball. And like I said, and my comparison to MJ as well is that three scoring, that's three-way scoring. He can shoot from. I mean, obviously MJ wasn't a great 3-point shooter, but they're a shooter, they're a slasher, they're a high-flying athletic dunker, all that sort of stuff. And I mean, he's obviously a way better 3-point shooter than MJ was. And again, he's more like a Ray Allen. He's just doing it at such a young age. A lot of these guys, do the athletic thing, and then they merge into a shooter as they get older to keep up and then have longevity. And I think Edwards has taken leaps out of the MJ and the Ray Allen book per se for great examples of I'm gonna round my game out early, and I'm gonna be an absolute threat from every spot on the floor. You're going to have to pick me up once I get over that timeline. You're going to have to pick me up, post it up. You're going to have to, throw everything you got at me. So I could definitely see him being a top 5 player in this league at some point. I won't say best in the league, but he's definitely headed towards being a face, and he's doing it a lot quieter than Ja Morant.
Yeah, listen, listen, top 5 player, man. I mean, that's pretty high, praise. I agree. I think his potential. I think he's, got through the roof potential. We'll see over the next 5 years where he got, but he's a guy that's got the right attitude. He's got the right game. He's got heart. He's got the whole package. Applause as far as I'm concerned. But listen, I love Edwards' game, and I loved him in that movie too. What was the name of The Hustle, man? I loved him in that movie. He played himself. He was such a dick. I thought he was great, bro.
He played the jerk. He played the jerk well. And I mean, that's what he was at the time. That's how I viewed him when he first came in the league. I think he's a lot better than that now, though. He's humbled, and that's actually ultimately why I've sort of I got to the point I was like, I need an Anthony Edwards jersey for my collection. I went and bought myself an Anthony Edwards Timberwolves jersey because that's how much I enjoy watching. Color? I got their statement this year, that charcoal one with the green.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was an awesome jersey. Shout outs to B and Rose, but B, man, why you always got to come up here? Wherever I'm at, B's
Philly.
Philly this. Hey, man, let's talk about Philly actually quickly, Eddie. Speaking of those frauds, the 76ers. And I know B's obviously a Knicks fan, right? He's not a 76ers fan, but, we've just been informed that they dropped, obviously, that lead. They had a 20-plus point lead against Dallas, and they dropped it and ended up losing. Now that's I'm being informed by Ariel, so shout out to Ariel. He said something earlier in the chat about that's 2 20-point leads they've dropped and lost the game. This is very much a team, man, that I know people are higher on them, and come playoffs time it might be different, but they really lack intensity sometimes. We saw that in the Knicks game. Remember, it was on the back of Tyrese Maxey off the bench, really willing them into that game, because it looked like at some point, remember, the Knicks were up double digits, and Embiid and Harden, as much as they were doing, they just looked like they'd sort of conceded. And it was off the back of Tyrese Maxey, like, let's go, that those guys found their groove and really put the foot down. So, Eddie, honest opinion about Philly. Do you think that they are? This is the question. This is the way I'll phrase the question. Is I know you think a little bit more of them than I do, and I shout outs to Bede for bringing up Philly because it actually gave us topic to talk about. But do you think that Philly is at threat of being bounced by at least 5 of the top 6, the other 5 teams out of the top 6 that aren't there?
All right. Well, I'll tell you this about Philly. This is what's scaring me about Philly. They're right now, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the 5th favorite team to win the NBA championship. That's what Vegas has them. So right now, if you would put $100, they're plus 900. I mean, that's just a little bit of a scary number right now. So the fact that Vegas thinks of them so highly is making me second guess how good I think this team is now. They're the 5th. They have the 5th best odds to win the championship, and it's kind of bugging me out a little bit, Smitty, to be honest. It's kind of, when I'm reading these numbers, I'm thinking, okay, Harden has been played really good this year. I like what obviously Embiid has been top 5 player easily in the NBA. He's done his thing. I think the key to the season with Philly, it's James Harden, right? If James Harden shows up in the playoffs, I know everybody's gonna say he never shows up in the playoffs. He never, but if he does this year, okay, when he's on a contract year and he's doing all this shit, like he's talking all this shit that he might go back to Houston, if James Harden shows up and has a good playoffs, Philly's got a chance to make a run in the East. They do. And the fact that Vegas thinks of them so highly is making me convince myself even more that Philly has a chance to make a run. I don't know. What do you think, Smitty? I know you
Oh,
hate
look.
Philly. I know you hate them. I know you do.
No, look. Let me say something first. So I know you're using Vegas as an example here and to base your argument,
It's
and
not
that's
the end
great.
all be all.
Yeah, well, I know, and that's great. No, it's a fair point because they're the money makers, right? They're the line movers and such. But I'll just remind you of something about our little old Knicks.
Huh.
How many wins did Vegas have the Knicks to win before the season started?
39.5.
All right. Okay. What are we at now? 37.
I think so.
Yeah. So
It's one game over.
we're likely going to shatter that, right?
Yes.
Now.
They had the Lakers at 47 too. So.
Yeah, of course, right. So, Vegas again, and as you said, it's not the be all end all. Vegas does get it wrong sometimes. I'd love to know what the odds odds become if Philly continues this way of dropping games. But then again, Vegas is looking at all the metrics and all that sort of stuff, what they've done. There's a lot of numbers involved. But hey, look, man, Philly, I think they're beatable. I think they're beatable by say the top 6 teams in the East. The other 5 that aren't them is obviously they'd be in the 6. I think they're beatable by any one of them in a series, just because of the fact that they really just look lackadaisical at times. Their defensive efforts are poor. The way they get back on defense, the way they set up, and then the way they follow or refuse to follow players around sometimes. They constantly let themselves at times as well be switched out onto bad matchups. I've noticed. On poor matchups, and they rely so heavily on Embiid as a defensive anchor, like so heavily. And this is a guy that's meant to be a defensive and an offensive anchor for that team. So I just wonder how far he can go. He's always just a light bump away from being out for 20 games as well. So that's where I'm going to sort of feel with that in terms of Philly.
What's your take on Harden, bro? You think he's a fraud?
Yeah, you don't want to hear my take on Harden.
Come on, no, I gotta hear your take on Harden now, bro. I gotta hear it. Are you kidding me?
I've never since he left the OKC Thunder and went to Houston, I've not once had any inkling of care for Harden's game. That's the way I'll phrase it. I don't care for his game. I feel he's look. I will give him props. He has changed it up a bit since he got to Philly, but I think that's him finally realizing this is my last go. This is sort of my last. Yeah, this is my last chance to really make it happen. The way he obviously, for people and for a man that had kept himself in such good shape. You remember him in the early days of Houston? You would never have guessed it, but washboard abs, just a ripped dude in unreal shape. And then he just went to, I'm just going to, eat all the Krispy Kremes and all the Chick-fil-A and all the Wendy's. That was the sort of posh, the figure he had at some point. And now, don't get me wrong, he bounced back from that fairly well. But this is a guy that just wasted talent. He slows the offense down. He wastes shot clocks. He's an offense killer at times. As much as he can orchestrate the offense, and this is my biggest gripe with him, is this dude has the talent and the ability, Eddie, to really orchestrate an offense. His vision is unreal at times, but it's funny because his vision's so great, but his decision making so poor. He looked for his own shot too often. Even still, I think he looks for his own shot a little bit too often in crucial points of games. And he's just an offense killer. Granted, he has been better since he got to Philly, but this is a guy, man, that will just pound the ball on the hardwood and totally kill a whole possession or 3 in a row, back to back possessions. And his defense is just it's held up by his teammates. It always has been because he doesn't really have much of a one-on-one defensive drive. I'm not a fan. I understand his offensive abilities. I will tip my hat to that. But unfortunately, man, he's an offense killer. I think he's one of the biggest offensive killers in terms of movement and ball movement. And as they say, man, the ball can move faster than any person on the court can. Right. So that's the way I see it. As Ariel says, lazy ass turnstile defender. Ariel said what I was holding off on saying, but
hey, don't hold back.
Hey, I'm gonna land it there. Eddie, man, look, before we wrap this up, is there anything else you wanted to talk to us about? If there's any questions that anyone else has in the chat, of course, post them up. Because I'm going to ask a few questions to the chat before we get out of here. But Eddie, is there anything else you wanted to touch on today? This has obviously been a great first episode. We appreciate all that have tuned in. But we ultimately we're reaching the end of the first show.
Yeah, Smitty, I'm good, man. I think we've touched on everything. I think I spoke enough right now, so I'll shut my mouth and we'll get to the chat or something here.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, just before on that Harden thing, Ebony says, I call late passes not in the flow of offense the Harden assist. She's right. It's called the bailout government package. It's that Harden stimulus, the Harden stimulus, the bailout. But hey, look, man, appreciate guys for coming in. Obviously, this has been our first live show of the Smitty and Eddie show. You saw some previews. We've got some segments. We talk around the whole NBA. Let us know in the comments or by any way you can get to us any ideas or stuff you'd like us to talk about, anything you think that's important. We do have some ideas coming and we'll see more and more from this show. Trust me, there's a lot in the treasure trove and we're constantly, the hamster wheel is turning. But shout outs to all our people that turned up today, all our people. Please like, share, subscribe, retweet, whatever it is you can to get this out there. KOD Media, appreciation to them, and obviously the Morning Brew crew for making this all possible. If without them, this doesn't happen. So, we're doing some great things over here on this side, and we'd love to engage the the viewers as much as possible, man. The viewers as much as possible. So guys, you can also catch us obviously doing Knicks post game and pre games. If you want our Twitter handles, mine is @GoodKidBurnCity, and Eddie's is @NBA_CapWiz. So we might post that in the comments. Find us on Twitter. Tell us we suck or tell us you like us, whatever. Either way, we've got the bullet best on. But hey, look, Eddie, man, without further ado, this has been a great first episode, man. I appreciate you, my guy. There's more to come, man. It looks like everyone's enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed this first show. So with that, man, thank you guys for coming. This has been the Smitty and Eddie show.